3, 2.
Blast off.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the February Ciphertastic edition of the Greenfield Files. How have you been, Mr. Greenfield?
Splendid. Ready to do this program today.
There you go. And we are ciphering. Apparently, this is what the people want to hear about. Your uh, your adventures with ciphers. And I think we should just cut straight to start asking questions. Where is I'm trying to find the first one because they came in a weird order. So bear with me. Right. So Alan uses the NEAQ to connect key concepts between rituals like the Star Sapphire, the Bornless ritual, to aspects of the rites of Memphis and Mizrae, and also with the names of entities from UFO lore. Employing the NAEQ in this way seems to create useful links that yielded meaningful results in Alan's research. My question is, how can the NAEQ be used as a device for research? What is an effective way to do this? Is it also a tool for spiritual transformation? And we're having that as our kind of overarching theme tonight.
Oh yeah, if my understanding of the cipher is correct, yes, in fact, using it like any Kabbalistic system has the, if you will, byproduct of being transformative. And I think that may be the ultimate intention of the being that uh, incorporated the cipher into Liber Al. I mean, that got it some initial attention, and that lasted from 1904 to 1974 when Jim Lees went on retreat and decoded it, even though I have reason to believe that Frederick Codd could have done the same in 1947, 48, because he did get the first three letters, and all you really need to do is go from uh, A to L, and that's 11 spaces, the number of magic, and L to W, and then just follow the English alphabet out to its Z conclusion, which is, you would think that was obvious, but again, from how many years is that? 1904 to 1974. It's a long time, and Jim Lees gets the credit, and Crowley does not because he obviously tried. You can see that in the handwritten parts of the uh, orthographic manuscript of Liberal, which is right here. No, I'm lying.
You wish.
No, I really don't wish. I do know that for a while it was under Billy Boy's bed. I have that on excellent authority.
I don't know if have we ever spoken about the whole history of the cipher before. I don't think we have we? Like, how did it
No,
all?
no, I was going over what we were going to talk about, and you have an extraordinarily literate audience for the Greenfield Files and for sitting now, simply because you address what I would call third level magical concerns. And I think that probably all or almost all of the people that are listeners, as they still call it, 60 years after radio ceased to be the primary medium, um, already know the basics. So I'm perfectly willing to discuss that. I mean, how I how it was divined, how I came into possession of it, and my one great contribution, which was to realize that it applied to more than occult conundrums applied to all kinds of things in the high strangeness category. So
Yeah.
I can do that or I can try to do something that cuts right to my heart, like the Aztecs did a long time ago. There you go, son. Take Alan's heart, you mother. Okay.
One thing
So,
that might be worth asking actually is, what do you mean by high strangeness? Because that seems to have it's a bit like left hand path, isn't it? It seems to have multiple different sort of connotations attached to it.
well, I mean it to be broad and somewhat amorphous because it means if it seems outside of consensus reality. Do I need to define that also? It means what most people consider to be reality. Uh, then, if it is uh, profound, life changing, and has eureka or wow factor, more contemporary term, then it would be high strangeness. That would include everything from Sasquatch, Yeti, Bigfoot, my least favorite term in the entire area, all the way to little purple men from UAP, otherwise and more accurately known as flying saucers.
Or euphonauts, surely.
Yeah. Well,
um,
what about UAP knots? It,
mm.
it just trips lightly off the tongue.
um, have you heard about this? When I've heard some people talk about high strangeness, and they talk about this kind of link that runs through high strangeness as well, that you're a part of. Your name always comes up in this.
I don't wonder at that because back in the day, I wouldn't say that I was the only person seeing it in those terms. Um, Most people were still, we're going back, I hate dating myself, 50 years. But 50 years ago, there were only two theories really that had, shall we say, provenance among people interested in any one of these subjects, which is cryptozoology and ufology, let alone occultism, were totally different fields and never the twain shall meet. Um, and Valet, Keel, and I guess although I was but a punk teenage peon at the time, um, were saying, no, 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 no. In fact, if you look a little bit deeply into this and uh, have read, shall at that time, I guess you would say, not too much, but Evans Wentz on fairy lore and uh, the standard UFO lore of that period, including landing cases where beings were seen, often rarely green, if ever, but little beings, um, or ghost lore, or occult conjurations, or any number of strange outside so-called fringe phenomena. They seemed like they were different aspects of one thing, and the one thing is very difficult to define, but it goes back historically as far as you can go historically. And probably if you take into account things like the history of shamanism, um, all the way back to the dawn of humanity, and possibly even earlier than that, if you take uh, did hominids have shamanic powers? My guess would be probably, but of course that's lost in prehistory, and perhaps you would only find some indications of it in rock art, so that the late and lamented Eric von Daniken could say, "See, it's the space people." But he was Swiss, and what do they know? Uh,
They don't get involved, do they? Normally.
uh, the only other Swiss person I know is Herr Koenig, and of course Billy Meyer.
So
For those listening on radio or computer or whatever, Billy Meyer was getting a woo, 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 what the skeptical shaman calls the woo factor.
we should say hello to some of our regular listeners as well that are watching live at the moment, including Early Ritual, who is our moderator in the chat, which is he's always very he's on it. He's always on it, and he's posted some nice links to your Substack and your website. And of course, we have Tim and Deacon and Joshua, a cult, old gaffer. So we've got a few people. Are you an old gaffer, as in, are you a lighting gaffer for film, or I don't know? That'd be interesting to know, because I've just been hanging out with gaffers today, weirdly. um, do you see the NAEQ sort of operating as like a, I don't know, like a symbolic overlay, do you think, like imposed by the magician, or do you think it's like acts like an interface between the magician and sort of pre-existing intelligences, would you say?
Oh, I would say the latter, and it's self-proving. If you apply the cipher as uh, delivered by Jim Lees and the group around the late and lamented British Journal of Ceremonial Magic, um, most of whom have gone on to their reward above. Um, it seems that they applied it to strictly occult questions, and my one real contribution, in which my early books were confined to, was saying, no, no, no. I find that it applies to the strange names and uh, words and planetary attributions, etc., in ufology. And as I went along, I realized it also applies just as well to other areas of high strangeness, meaning cryptozoological phynomena and just the fairy lore and uh, the sort of things that the early SPR was interested in, like ghost lore and mediumship, which would now be termed trans-channeling. The controls always had really strange and often comical names, but if you applied the cipher to them, it became much more sensible. So the cipher, I mean, it can be done manually. Heaven knows a lot of people did it that way for many years, and there were even purists who maintained that you should do it manually. That is, decoding it one letter at a time and not use any computer programs or anything. I'm too lazy for that. I was first exposed to it through the now almost inaccessible lexicon program, but you can get any number of sites that will yield the numerical value of any term or word or even sentence or even paragraph, and get with a little effort, a coherent uh, answer to whatever it is that you're probing for. And I think that has a great deal to do with the underlying morphic resonance of the universe. Pardon me, Mr. Sheldrake. and young Mr. Sheldrake and all of the Sheldrakes around.
We have a question from AO Occult, and he asks, is the phenomena a projection of the Yetzirah, the word of air, onto our realm?
My answer would be probably, but there's the only proof of that is if you apply the strict Kabbalistic rules to the Neo English Kabbalah, which the original group did, and which to some extent we all do. It does seem to be consistent with the Ciphertastic, but I would even say even more so to the Zohar, which, depending on your take on it, is either a much later work or which had origins more or less lost in legend and antiquity. So, yes, and when I was very young and I'm pretty proficient in Hebrew, but not in Aramaic, which is substantially different, although they are related languages. I obtained a complete copy of the early translation of the Zohar from Sonsino, which did a great deal of yeoman-like translation. And when I ordered the books, curiously enough, I heard from one of the owners of Sonsino Press who said, "Have you heard about the Warminster object?" Which I had because it was like big news at the time. And I said, "Why, yes, what's your interest?" And I never got a straight answer from the gentleman, but it was very interesting to me that this very staid, very proper English Jews trying to be very staid and proper in the English style beyond your average Englishman was an enthusiast for strange flying objects that fall upon the holy ground of Warminster. So that's just say anyway. So in that translation, which is there's a much better one now, I understand. There is a one of the standard sounding rabbinical stories, but it amounts to this. And I will describe it in Greenfield terms because this is the Greenfield files, right? This is not the Sonsino files.
Yeah.
It goes like this. A rabbi is going to a meeting of the academy in Babylon, I presume, and he sees a light in the sky hovering and headed towards the academy to which he is winding his way, I guess. So he gets there and he says to the other rabbinical luminaries of the academy, "I saw a light in the sky headed this way." And one of the other sages says to him, "That light was yourself." And I must have been 14 when I read that, but it has stuck with me ever since, even though that is at least 3,000 years ago, as I
Yeah.
recall. So, in a way, the answer to your Karen's question is, yeah, I would say so. In the Kabbalistic literature, it is broadly hinting at the notion that the phenomena that one gets, say, in the Kabbalistic ascent literature, which is all roughly based on Ezekiel 1:1, which is often taken to be an ancient account of a flying saucer, close, very close, uncomfortably close encounter. Uh, the whole ascent literature is devoted to ascending into higher realms through what amounts to the chariot literature, as it would be the best translation, I guess. And what those chariots are, there was a period where all accounts of that were saying, but if you took this in modern terms, that chariot was actually a flying saucer.
Mhm.
So I think that deals with the question. Same
Um,
thing, different cultural context.
yeah. Well, on the subject of mentioning the Kabbalah earlier, one of the greatest swines on our Discord, Ken Eakins, actually wrote some questions this week, and
I've heard of
uh,
him.
I put, can NAEQ be understood as a post-revelatory Kabbalah arising after the collapse of a single authoritative revelation, yet still capable of transmitting gnosis?
I think that's true of Liber Alba Legis as a whole, but
Hmm.
it's not exclusive. It it appears to me that in the wake of the late 18th century Enlightenment, or so-called Enlightenment, uh, there were massive revisionist views of, uh, shall we say, classical miraculous literature, to wit, the Hebrew Scriptures and the New Testament. As a result of which, there were new transmissions in the 19th century, beginning, I suppose, with the Book of Mormon, which, if you study uh, upstate New York history for that era, all kinds of high strangeness, one might even say weirdness, was going on there. The Fox sisters and their 5 raps means yes, and 10 raps means no. Basically, the birth of the modern mediumship movement. Also, in addition to that, and the Book of Mormon, it was saturated with Masonic uh, organizations, and there was a huge scandal involving a gentleman who revealed the inner secrets of Freemasonry and was assassinated by some of his more enthusiastic brethren, which in turn led to a major scandal throughout the uh, I don't know how many states there were in 1820, but not all that many. But anyway, they all had Masonic groups, and at that point, the anti-Masonic party was formed, and for a while, it was the second largest political party in the United States because of the scandal in upstate New York of the Morgan affair. Morgan was the guy that apparently the brethren assassinated him and carted his corpse off to Canada, where nobody would notice the corpse because it's Canada.
Well, I have another question that I wrote, another one from this swine. Then I'll let the chat and Discord take back over. But I
Oh,
was
I
thinking,
didn't complete that. Let me just,
oh, yes, I shall.
after the Book of Mormon, which came out of upstate New York, you find the Urania book, also channeled but towards the end of the century, and Oahspe, which was channeled on what passed for a typewriter in the 1880s or 90s, and then in the early 20th century, channeled allegedly in Egypt in 1904, the Liber Alvel Legis. And then subsequently, all kinds of things, the Seth material, the raw material, which is suddenly becoming extremely popular among people interested in trans-channeling. So I think that these are exactly what you refer to. They are attempts to revivify and update the concept of sacred literature with varying levels of results.
Yeah, I had because I've been, as I always do, been thinking a bit about the Mauve zone again recently, and yeah, my other question was: have you noticed whether NAEQ derived correspondences cluster around liminal or Mauve zone phenomena like UFO contact, dream intrusion, synchronic overload, more than other traditional initiatory symbolism?
Yeah, in fact, the first thing that I did, the late great Tina Coutet gave me a copy of Lexicon and said, "This is an occult cipher that will clarify things for you, Alan." And I said, "Well, okay, Tina, I'll give it a try." But there were so many people working on the occult aspect, I thought, well, I could apply this to the silly names that show up in UFO lore and trans-channeling lore and see what happens. And it has led to a very comfortable career for me because it applied equally well there. So if you uh, consider it to be a Kabbalistic key to more contemporary questions about the broad range of phenomena, I would say that that is precisely what it's for. Now, the thing that will rub Thelemites, such as they are, the wrong way is my contention that Liber Alvel Legis, the book of the law, or the book of ALW, no change in cipher value there, is to be the container for the cipher. So I call it not a holy book, but uh, a code book that is used entirely to decode these various terms that show up in all kinds of weird lore and show up as certainly as long as the English language has been in existence in one form or another. I know cases where people have applied it to Chaucer, which is certainly very, very Middle English, but it applies equally well there. And I can't tell with Old English because Old English is about like Aramaic to me. I don't dig it.
Do you think because it's like non-organic, as it were, it's the kind of a bit more artificially? It's got a kind of artificiality to it, hasn't it? It's like a structured thing. Do you think it kind of better interfaces with non-human modes of cognition because of that? Maybe because it's not organically human, as it were.
You mean the cipher or Old English?
Well, both. Old English is about as confusing.
It's a Mickle-like way, and I want my way. I have no idea what I just said. It's probably a curse. But um, I've never thought of it that way, but I will concede the point. It's possible that that is the case.
Mm. Yeah. So we have another question from the chat. What does Alan think are reasons why certain locations breed high strangeness? The Hudson Valley in New York is still considered a huge hotspot. Does he give credence to geo reasons like ley lines, etc.?
Absolutely, totally, and based on the entire history, first of all, of the old straight track, the ley lines, applied to the entire planet, and with the additional notion going far beyond, I guess, would horrify Watkins, were he among the living, um, that you will find places of mystical interest, churches, and beneath the churches, maybe uh, um, Mithraeums, the temples of Mithra, which apparently were built in some cases deliberately under churches in the the beginnings of the Christian era, as a counterweight of some sort. It's even suspected that that was a uh, deliberately spread by uh, the the Roman legionary officer class among the rank and file in order to overcome their fear of death, since that's, when you think about it, both the ultimate common denominator between Mithraism and Christianity, both of which say, uh, in the words of a famous anarchist who was uh, shot by firing squad in Utah, there'll be pie in the sky when you die by and by. There'll be pie. Never mind. Okay. Which, who am I to say? So I don't know if that answers it, but that seems to be the case.
Earlier on, early Ritual also asked he would be curious to see how a legit ritual magician uses the NAEQ. I know I use it some ways, but I feel like I'm just scratching the surface and looking more for connections than anything.
In case somebody mistakes me for an expert, that's the way that I use it as well. And if you want to see the flowering of 30 years of applying the cipher to standard magical rituals, specifically the Golden Dawn / AA curriculum, which are, the same thing under different management, so to speak. You will find that in, oh gosh, it sounds like a plug, but it's not, because I think it sold all of 5 copies or something. I did a little book, which I think was titled Ritual Magic in the 21st Century. And it basically is entirely made up of rituals that I have done, applying the cipher wherever there were, how shall I put it, confusing elements or barbarous names in the ritual, and bringing those forward into the 21st century by applying the cipher value and then coming up with terminology that was more in keeping with the original barbarous names or words or phrases or whatever, to the rituals in question. And this is something you can empirically prove or disprove yourself, and I would certainly appreciate feedback on that. Use that little book, and if you want to do a controlled experiment, do it in the classical way, and then do it in the way I derive from using the cipher for the key words involved, the words of power, and see which is the more effective. I maintain that for me, my version is more effective. And there are none included in that little book that I haven't personally tested successfully. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been included. That doesn't mean that there haven't been things that I did in the classical manner or haven't done at all or whatever, or have done with disastrous results, particularly back in the day when I was possessed by a demon, but I'm not anymore. Ken, would you like to be possessed by the demon?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay, me neither. But I guess the point is these are the perfected versions as they work for me, and I would love to see feedback from other people who are bold enough to give it a try, because it does fly in the face of the standard curriculum. But that's what I do.
I'm going to move these questions over because we've got some long ones here. So this is from one of our
Yes,
one of our
let me answer that one.
this is from one of our Patreons, 66. Alan uses the NEAQ to connect key concepts between rituals like the Star Sapphire, the Bornless ritual, to aspects of the rites of Memphis and Mizrae, and also with the names of entities from UFO lore. Oh, have I already asked this question?
Yes, and I already answered it, but
Yeah.
maybe I
It's
could
because
go a little bit further, because there's one thing in that phrase that, I mean, if you want to give the whole question, I'll shut up now.
No, it's just that he wrote two and they look exactly the same, but they're actually completely different questions, and I got confused. They're like the same length.
Okay. Well, in a sense, we dealt with that question just now. However, I don't make the. I think I make the theoretical claim that the rights of Memphis and Mitzrayim would profit from applying the cipher in its original form. That's a whole different discussion, because there are thousands of alternative ciphers that are successful, which I guess I should define, but we won't go there right now. That's a complicated one. Michael Bertio was talking about that the correspondence between occultism in general, or his system of occultism, and the rites of Memphis and Mitzrayim, and saying something in the Voodoo Gnostic workbook that when I first read it, it stuck with me, and I have quoted it more often than I should, but basically saying it may seem strange to the uninitiated, but behind the rite of Memphis and Mitzrayim, the Masonic rite of Memphis and Mitzrayim, is some form of UFO entity. And that sound, to the uninitiated, that sounds screwy. But when I first read it, I had already ventured into this territory, and it didn't seem all that strange to me. Esoteric, yes, the whole system is esoteric. But I can't claim that I made that connection. Also, that connection has been carried forward by Frater Palamas, who's perhaps more into the ritual aspects of Memphis Mitzrayim than I am. I'm more into the symbolic version of that. But in the current edition of Spirit Builders, not nearly as expensive as the old edition, the rituals get discussed in terms of NAEQ. So that goes beyond anything that I've done. But Palamas and I have interacted for these many years. So, if he says it, I wrote the introduction. So I guess I'm an endorser.
So this is the question I meant to read. um, Alan employs the NAEQ to explore the way John Yarker adapted the antient and primitive right degrees and makes specific mention to the former Adeptus Sirius degree. He comments, does the Adeptus Sirius degree contain a clue to the great arcane tradition of the connection between adepts and ultra-terrestrials? Can Alan give some further thoughts on this? Can he also comment further on the correlation between the 35th degree of the Knights of the Temple and the Adeptus Sirius?
Can we take that in two parts?
Yeah, it sounds like two questions to me, doesn't it? So let's do the Adeptus Sirius stuff first.
Yeah. I certainly don't know why it was removed from the Yarker recension of the degrees. It just isn't there. It was present when the Royal Masonic Cyclopedia appeared, which I guess was circa 1870s by one of the founders of the SRIA and therefore of the Golden Dawn. But it was not present in the Yarker recension, which is early 20th century, I guess. So why he chose to remove it and replace it with, I think it was the Sublime Cowie degree, I don't know. But I do know that in the present degree, the word of the degree is Sirius, and the password, I may be garbling this a bit, is Sothis, which is the Egyptian version of the same thing. So fragments of the adaptive Sirius degree survive in the more current form. I would like to see the degree restored, but I am not the Hierophant. I am only the whatever Pharaoh, a grand symbolic somebody. So I don't get to do that. But if
do you get your own pyramid though? That's the question.
Only if I was dead, so I don't need it now.
Anyway,
However, who can tell? Oh gosh, what happened? I disappeared when I said pyramid.
Oh.
I know what happened though. This is what happens whenever I move my chair. That's why I have such a scientific approach to all this. I have this mass of wires on the floor, and yeah, okay. Did I come back? No.
Not yet.
Okay. Say the secret word, and the duck will come down and hand you.
Abrahadabra. Abrahadabra.
Abrahadabra, which has a very interesting NAEQ thing. Come on, Alan. This is live. I know.
He's getting performance anxiety. There you go.
Am I back?
Nope.
No. Well, this sucks.
We can still hear you.
Okay. Well, I can't, but I'm a single tasker. Ergo, if I try to fix the wire.
Oh, he's just disconnected. Okay. I'm assuming he's unplugged his microphone and camera at the same time, thus plunging himself into darkness. So if you want to ask questions of Alan, do feel free to ask them in the chat, and I will vamp temporarily. Oh, I think he's back. There he is. Hello, we can see you again.
Is the audio back?
Yes, I can hear you as well.
What was the question? I don't hear it all.
The chat is commenting that the abyss had swallowed you whole, but no, I think you'll still hear the second half of
truth in packaging. I'm going to take my camera and show the world this pile of wires, and one of them runs all the way to my plants because I have a fake sunlight, which the plants, being stupid, agree with. I don't mean stupid.
Your background is oh no, you've just unplugged yourself again.
Doesn't matter. I have to put my camera back on, and then, oh, your browser has lost connection to your camera.
Yeah,
Well,
I think maybe less experimental.
okay, I'm not going to do that. Now you see,
Yeah, there
here
you
I
are.
am.
There you are. You're back. There we go.
Yeah. How back am I?
Are you in your? You're in the what do you call it? The bedroom instead of your palatial usual room.
No, I'm in my living room, which is not all that palatial, but I don't have a fake background today.
Yeah.
What was the question anyway?
So the second half of the question was, and actually he has two questions relating to this. He says, "Can you comment further on the correlation between the 35th degree of the Knight of the Temple and the Adept of Sirius?" But we've just done that, haven't we?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. And we've also got another question from him, which let's just go to this. He says, "I'm not sure how much Alan will be able to comment on this, but in the 35th degree, the Knight of the Temple, the alchemical concept of the Phoenix is mentioned in the 53rd stage of the Phoenix. The Sothic cycle of 1461, the Ouroboros, and the Phoenix as Sirius is this. Hang on, I'm going to. This is a lot of words. This is a word salad. The Ouroboros and the Phoenix as Sirius in the Sothic cycle is described. Can Alan comment on the allegory of the Phoenix and the Sothic cycle and what it might mean in terms of alchemical transformation?"
There's a synchronicity here that may be the more important thing.
Mm-hmm.
I just got that same question from one of my very best students over 30-year period, somebody I empowered on Arabia Mountain many years ago, and he asked that question yesterday.
It might be the same guy. You never know.
No. Not unless he's lives in upstate New York, one of the two lodges of free illuminists there. It's a tough question to summarize because it does involve degree stuff, and while I do not, I do hold with the notion, guard the secrets, reveal them constantly, which I think comes from the late Herman Slater of the legendary Magical Child bookstore, who my only conversation with was an argument, but that's often true with occultists and moi. I don't know how to succinctly answer that. The 35th degree, as with all degrees, the secret is in the signs and grips, not in the content of the degree. So if you apply the cipher to the signs and grips of the degree, you will have an understanding of the ritual content, because whereas it appears in all degrees that the ritual content is the subject and the signs and grips are simply the equivalent of the key in the door, in fact, the signs and grips contain the secret, and the content is dictated by the signs and grips. If you don't believe that, which a lot of Masonic people won't, reflect on this. Where do the signs and grips come from? They come from craft masonry, which, depending on how you look at it, originates in medieval guilds or originates in the builders of the Temple of Solomon, as is claimed in regular Freemasonry, or in the pyramids of Egypt, as is claimed by some Masonic scholars. Basically, craft masonry, certainly, I don't think anyone would argue with this, long precedes speculative masonry. And already there were secrets dating from plug number 2, my book on the Rite of Memphis has an introduction which I wrote, which explains the ancient Egyptian, the Greco-Egyptian Christianized tradition that supposedly dates from an Egyptian priest named Ormus, which means light, and Saint Mark from the Gospels, the earliest Gospel, actually. And therefore contains the secrets of pre-dynastic Heka, which would already push it back to thousands of years earlier into the hieratic Egyptian that was, well, Coptic, that was and is still spoken by actual Egyptians as opposed to Arabic-speaking Arab Egyptians. So this has great antiquity to it. And I think you'll find that in the entire structure of the degree system. And as I say in the, I guess it's the appendix, I think that's in the current edition. I don't know. I don't own a copy because my publisher never sent me one. He said with slight anger, but infinite patience with those that send me royalties, you know. It is likely that all of the rituals in ritual magic come from the degree system. The problem being that I think for what I hope to initiated people are obvious reasons. There were originally 360 degrees. And at the moment, we have been able to reclaim 100. It was 97 when Yarker wrote, circa 1905, 07. I don't know, I think he died in 1907, so somewhere in there. And then 100 years earlier with that, with the Rite of Memphis and the Rite of Mitzrayim, and then 50 years before that with Cagliostro, who was then the Grand Kofta. Now that's me, but I am not that grand. So he apparently was in Egypt and probably intertwined with the Hermetic Brotherhood of Light, which means he was entwined with Paulus Medamon, the famous, or depending on your point of view, infamous Coptic magician who carried forward that tradition to both the Hermetic Brotherhood of Light and to the Golden Dawn, the OTO, and many other societies in that tradition.
I missed a question earlier in chat from, where are we? There we go, from OA Occult. What are your thoughts on the astrological timing of high strangeness phenomena? We have Saturn conjunct Neptune in a week, and that always correlates to massive UFO paranormal flaps, 1989, 1952, etc.
I think that there is a correlation. Now, astrology is not my specialty. My divination specialties are tarot and I Ching. But I have great respect for astrology, and while I'm not sure that it works in the way that classical astrologers think that it works. I think that it works, and therefore probably is part of the high strangeness universe. And I probably am not expert enough to comment on that, except, again, the same synchronicity. I don't know. Are these questions from the same person that was asking the earlier one that I flagged as synchronous with something I got from like one of my best
No, it's a different
students?
person. Different
Okay,
person.
well then, double synchronicity, everybody. Da, 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 da. I don't know, because that was the specific question. I was going to bring that on the show, but of course, being elderly and my mind wanders, I didn't do that. So, and I don't dare look for it right now because I'll probably erase myself again. Hey, I could look on my phone. Nobody knows that. So ad lib for a minute, and I'll see if I can find this. It is such a synchronicity that both the question and my answer are right germane to this program, which I knew I was going to do. So, that's no mystery, but certainly I haven't, since the Greenfield Files is sometimes for Patreons only, live being the exception, right? Right, Ken? Right? I don't discuss it in advance because I did one time, and Ken flew across the Atlantic, beat me up, and said, "Don't ever do that again."
I was
I said,
furious.
"Okay, Ken.
Furious.
Can I can I come over there and see where Crowley was burned?"
I was lashing him with something
With a
horrible.
Roman flagellum.
Yeah, exactly.
With
It
the
was like
weighted thing. It was very S&M, but I won't go there.
you know how we occultists can be.
What do I know about that? Despite the rumors. Why? That's all ex-girlfriends with a problem. And
So
ex-wives with a bigger problem. Okay, I'm going to find this damn thing.
if
Hold
people
on.
want to ask questions in the chat, do so. We we have Mr. Greenfield here for that exact reason, to address your mystical concerns. As he checks his phone. This is like, I've got friends that do this. You go out, you go out for a drink with them or something, and they just sit there on their phone, and you just think, oh, for God's sake.
Oh, I
Why-
don't do that, but I do
No,
check
no.
my phone a great deal.
Alan just does it on podcasts instead. He
Oh,
just-
here's something from my friend Ken, who is ensconced right down the street from where Crowley was burned, a holy spot because he got
It's
rid
true.
of. Oh,
Did you know also that slightly further down the road is where Alex Sanders used to be based, and also who else?
yes, yes.
And slightly further down the road from that is where Crowley used to live in his final days in Netherwood. So there's lots of occult lineage around here, and also we used to have, what's her name? Who's the witch?
Doreen Valente.
Yeah, she used to live
My
here in
friend
Bedford.
Doreen, yes. Doreen told me all I needed to know about old Gerald, as his female acquaintances tended to call him.
Alan's checking his Tinder at the moment. He's
No! No, I keep that to my. No, never mind. I didn't mean ignore. Ignore me. Deutsche World. Oh, okay.
today. Maybe he's more of a Hinge kind of guy, or I don't want to. I don't want to guess what kind of.
Join the AFD. It'll make you feel like you're a true chairman. Okay. Well, if I want to be a true chairman, I'll let you know. Why are these things on? Come on, anything but that. Okay, I'll search by name.
There you go. Bumble, yeah, he's definitely a
But
Bumble.
I won't give his name because I don't have permission to do that. And
Crowley's new.
and Karma are in the K's, and that's as close as I'll come. But I'm going. Okay. Insight needed. Hold on.
Crowley's New Hampshire cabin was super close to the Betty and Barney Hill abduction location. Was it? Didn't know that. That's interesting. I like the story
Well,
about.
that's in one of those. We were talking earlier about the high weirdness zones.
Yeah.
That area is one of them.
Hmm.
And while some of them are accounted for by
I like the story about Crowley. It's not true, sadly, but I like the story when he was in Hastings. He tried to get the council to let him put I think it was to put an event on or do something, and they refused to let him. So he said, "I'll put a curse on Hastings, it's the town down the road.
I
The day
think
I die,
William the Conqueror did that a long time ago. If I
But he said he'll
remember.
put a curse on Hastings. He dies, and the day he died, apparently a load of Scousers turned up in the town and moved into Hastings, which is quite funny if if you're British, especially, you'll understand, and Southern, you'll understand why that would be somewhat of a curse. But not that there's anything wrong with Scousers. I do like Liverpool, but unfortunately, that story's not true. That would have been a great story, but
Okay,
there
I
is a pub.
found the guide. Now I'm looking for the. Here it is. It's a question about, I hesitate to even say it because I don't want to push this, the Collins elite.
Oh, right, yeah, we talk a lot about that on the Mauve Zone.
I don't doubt it.
Mhm.
Okay. So he writes me, a dear elder brother and fellow star. It's the way we talk amongst our secret society of Illuminati. No, don't get started on that. Are you familiar? If so, please share in caps, just like, and I say, fellow star and brother, blah, blah. Not an easy question. You bear with me. It's a long post, but this is something your listeners and viewers will really want to know, particularly in light of the questions, unrelated, so to speak, but synchronous questions that we have had thus far. Not an easy question. That Collins elite was allegedly organized directly in the wake of the July 1952 saucer flap and subsequent CIA panels proposed disinformation campaign makes me suspicious that this is disinformation in several ways. Who or what was Collins? Why at Wright-Patterson? That's an Air Force base where Project Blue Book was headquartered and rumored to be where the crash saucers were hauled. And there are many, many rumors about that. And in addition to Parsons channeling something, capital S, came through something dark. Whether they closed the portal, nobody seems to know. But it is the case, as you know, that all kinds of denizens of otherwhere, capital O, are conjured in magical invocation and evocation. I've done it repeatedly, but I close them. I'm sure there are people in military circles interested in the occult. The interest in the annotated edition of Jessup's book, The Case for the UFO, illustrates that, but a formal secret group fixated on, quote, demons, rather than, quote, aliens, seems off. Long before Parsons or Crowley, where am I? The various manifestations of the phenomena appeared and were reported all over the world, as you know. Various seers and prophets and visionaries have reported them, going back at least to the earliest shaman. just sounding like what we've already said. Classically, to be a shaman, one had to have survived an NDE to become one. I assume the current concerns have a lot to do with Nick Redfern's new book. I imagine I haven't interacted with him for some years. The secret group, I doubt. Why focus exclusively on demonic manifestations? Sounds as narrow as ye old ETH. Having said that, of course, the technology of invocation and evocation, I need not tell you, is quite real. Finally, using the cipher, I consulted the wisdom of the secret chiefs. Decided, here's what I got. This is all in caps because this is directly decoded using the cipher from the secret chiefs. Do I change my voice to do, let him come for the beast? I, the outcast and cursed, a secret door. The ritual is nothing we have. My understanding of this is the group in question either does not exist or it has no power to invoke demons or daemons. I hope this helps a bit. Fraternally, me. Is the connection obvious, or do I need to expound further? I
Should
mean,
probably expound a little bit, maybe.
well, I mean, it is asking about how the cipher applies to current concerns, and in using the cipher in that specific way, it seems to me that it's in tune with the earlier questions that we came up with here, because that's basically what he's asking in a short sentence question, occasioned, I suspect, by Nick's new book, which I think said group is dubious, but I think you could make a case for the existence of something like the Collins elite, although that name, unless it's something like the way the military generates project names, supposedly at random, could be a name. But I don't know. Collins is a name I associate with Irish nationalists and a certain
whiskey.
alcoholic beverage.
Yeah, and whiskey.
Tom Collins. Yes.
So I have
Exactly.
two more. I think we've got two more questions, and then we're going to wrap up. Because I'm going to pass out from fatigue otherwise, just because it's been a long day. So we've got this one from TGH 2048. Is there a chance that the phenomena surrounding Loch Ness was due to Crowley's activities at Bleskins, UFOs as well as beasties and Men in Black?
No, it's an interesting coincidence. It's also true that the headquarters of the Hermetic Brotherhood of Light was on Loch Ness as well before they migrated to my neck of the woods just north of Atlanta.
We just had another synchronicity, by the way, because the next question's about the Hermetic Brotherhood of Light. But anyway, go on.
I leave it to you to explain that one if we're running out of time, because I tend to go on, as your listeners all know, groan at. What was the question?
On the screen, is there a chance that the phenomena surrounding Loch Ness was due to Crowley's activities at Bleskin?
No, because Loch Ness lore goes back centuries, and I think the focus there is one of those things that we have, like the CIA invented flying saucers, or Crowley died, and the next year UFOs came out of the desert and have been. It just isn't the case. The fact is that all of the phenomena that I call high weirdness or high strangeness uh, date from remote antiquity and literally prehistory, in that history doesn't get written until writing is invented. So uh, we have to, explore primordial shamanism and so forth. So uh, I don't. I think that's overcrediting Crowley. I think it's more likely that the uh, secret chiefs twice burned down Boleskine House as an attempt at a message. uh,
Maybe the place drew the magician rather than the magician,
that could
activating
be.
the place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I perhaps, I mean, I don't know the circumstances under which he bought Boleskine, just so he could call himself a laird, because of the peculiarity in Scottish uh, law where that is concerned. That is, land ownership and lairdship are automatically one and the other, which has, roots in the the whole feudal concept of, if you own land, you're, a baron or a duke or whatever. Anyway, so no, I think that Nessie is uh, something perennially located in Loch Ness, or excuse me, Loch Ness, and that's what if I do the Scottish Paranormal show, that it's always, I try to do the one thing the Jews and the Scots always have in common is the.
Anyway, the next question, the final question that we should do for today.
No, not final.
Tim says, an ignorant question. Can Alan say a bit more about the Hermetic Brotherhood of Light and their influences on more modern orders?
That's not an ignorant question. It's a key question. I'll tell you what I think, and it's totally not what the occult orders associated with Crowley say. I don't know what they think, because that's incomprehensible. In the 1890s, the Hermetic Brotherhood of Light, then situated on Loch Ness in northern Scotland, uh, was teaching the curriculum of P.B. Randolph's Brotherhood of Euless. And the curriculum of the Brotherhood of Euless was the teaching of sexual magic. It was done in lofty Victorian terms because the founders, including Randolph himself, did not want to wind up in the Hooskow, the slammer, the jail, which they would have had they been more open about it. But they had quite a following until Randolph's very untimely death. And nevertheless, there were people like Peter Davidson, a Scot and a distiller, as many Highland Scots were said to be at the time, put out a magazine called the Occult Magazine, and they danced around the issue as well, lest they offend the crown, I guess you would say. Eventually, they got too hot to handle in Scotland, and they migrated to an area called Loudsville, Georgia, about 75 miles from here, where I sit right now. And apparently, Ken has been abducted, but that's okay.
I'm still
He'll be
here.
back.
I'm still here. I'm reporting live from the abyss. The no battery. I forgot to
Oh,
finish.
Karan-san,
I
how
keep
are
having this
things in
issue.
the abyss? Have you eaten anyone lately? Did they taste good? Okay, but so by the time that had migrated to Georgia and fell again into some differences between Peter Davidson and his acolyte, a person, according to Madame Blavatsky, of unsavory reputation, and apparently who got did a stint in reading jail. He also migrated to Loudsville, which no longer exists. It's now incorporated into Cleveland, Georgia, not to be associated with Cleveland, Ohio, or Cleveland, Tennessee, the home of the Church of God. So you have to take it seriously because that's the Church of God, you know. So the they had a falling out, and the other guy went to California and founded the Church of Light. And that was so successful that he wrote the first volume of The Light of Egypt, famous in its day and still valued among occultists. And then after he died, he wrote the second volume through some of his followers, The Light of Egypt, Volume 2. So that was quite a feat for Thomas Burgoyne, the jailbird and dead guy. But hey, we do these things. Anyway, during the ferment of that time, a wealthy industrialist in Austria named Karl Kellner got together with the more famous Theodore Royce, and they put together the skeletal beginnings of the Ordo Templi Orientis, which was, in Kellner's view, was to be a Masonic academy. However, Kellner was one of the first Europeans to be an enthusiast for yoga, including tantric yoga. And the highest degrees in the system were essentially the teachings of P.B. Randolph on sexual magic. The remaining degrees were Masonic degrees, essentially applied to a system that starts out as Masonic with the Blue Lodge and progressive degrees up to the middle echelon degrees where it becomes the teachings of sexual magic. No rituals involved at all. And by the time Kellner, having died in the early 1900s, I know I'm getting into the weeds, but this is the only way to answer this question. So Royce carried on, and at some point in the period circa 1909, 1913, he brought Aleister Crowley into the organization. They eventually, as Crowley did with everybody, had a falling out, and Crowley seized the means of production, so to speak, and the whole system of magic that derived from P.B. Randolph became the 7th through 9th degree of the OTO, uncredited to Randolph, who conspicuously has never made it into the litany of male saints within the OTO. So I don't know. Crowley had his prejudices, and it may be because Randolph was a black man. So he didn't get credit. Kellner and Royce got the credit. And where that history got blurred, one can draw one's own conclusions. So that's how it ties in. It's basically a teaching that P.B. Randolph claimed to have received in Egypt or in the Middle East by his own account, and it seems very similar to the origin account of Memphis Mitzrayim Masonry, which came out of Cagliostro's right, and in the 1700s and early 1800s, and also was sort of the fountainhead for the Theosophical Society, which started in Egypt, and I understand the Egyptian had expelled Madame Blavatsky and Colonel Olcott from their group for reasons that I don't really know, and they moved on to India, and the rest is history.
There you go. So you'll notice that we actually went 1 month to the next month. I'm trying to sort of be a bit more frequent with these episodes now. So we'll be back next month. We'll prearrange it.
Tomorrow, I think, is a good time, but next month is March, and March is a great. Another question that I got today was, when is the best time to work sexual magic according to the Ramesses period in ancient Egypt? Which, my temptation is to say, this isn't the Ramesses period in ancient Egypt. But that having been said, I reached a conclusion based on the astrology of that period, which was not based on the 12 signs. It was based on decans and other things from astrology that I don't claim to be an expert on, that the best time to work this stuff is late April and early May. Specifically May Day, which all over the world is a fertility festival that has been turned into other things, but still. One more story, very brief.
Really
I'm
brief.
capable.
Really brief. I'm almost asleep here. So.
Oh, you won't be asleep for this. My mother told me that as of her childhood, on May Day, they would have a maypole, and all the little girls would go around the maypole with streamers and wrap them around the rather phallic maypole. So May 1st is probably the best time, according to the Ramesses 18th, 19th, and 20th dynasty of ancient Egypt, most auspicious time to do sexual magic. Although I would say any weekend, a little Guinness and whatever.
Most days, really. I mean, it was suggested earlier that I start a sitting now dating app. So maybe if I can get that up before May, then people
yeah,
can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, go for it.
Yeah.
I'm elderly but viable, if you get my drift.
Anyway, so on that bombshell, we will see you next month, and thank you everyone for joining us. It's always good to see you in the chat, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for the great questions.
Yeah, they're good this one. Yeah, brilliant. See you guys later.